Hi, my name's Jade,
And my name's Emma.
and this is Lashing Out and Nailing Life. We're kicking it off with our first October episode, and this will be the lighthearted one of the two.
Yes. Yes. So mentally prepare for the second half of October. But we are really excited to do that episode also.
We are.
So today we are talking about the horrors of beauty school and the realities of being in the beauty industry. So not just having your own business, but everything that comes with getting to where we are now. And
I feel like people really glam up the whole pink collar job situation when it's not all glitz and glam.
yep, and reality is fake. So
Yeah, so I don't know.
yes. So yeah,
The big overarching question we had, we're going to just go through our timeline. So beauty school, working at where we were hired first, and then
Moving
where
out
we are
onto our
currently. And the overarching question that I feel like both of us probably get a lot is, what did you learn in beauty school? To which my haha response is always nothing. And what I mean when I say that is beauty school taught me nothing practical. It just taught me how to pass the exam to get my license.
Yep. I think my side, which is, it, again, probably depends on what school you go to and what your focus is going to be. We both had slightly different experiences, even though we went to the same beauty school. But I feel like my best education was right before I left because I had two teachers who actually wanted us to learn something. But at that point, I had a month left, maybe 2 months left in school. So at that point I had already accepted the fact that like I'm not gonna learn what I thought I was going to. I will go ahead and start off with when I toured the school that we went to, they promised me so many things that didn't happen, and there's no real way to fact check that before you register. So they had told me I did full cosmetology. I could not find a place that just did nails that had the vibes that I wanted because at the time I felt like going to a beauty school that felt more professional was going to mean that I was going to get more clientele, or the clients would feel more professional, or it was going to feel differently because it looked better. In hindsight, should have gone to the cheaper school. Should have gone to the cheaper school that taught us in the basement, and everyone was getting high off the fumes. Like, should have just done that because they had told me that since I was interested in nails, that I would get all of the nail clients. They had so many nail clients, and none of the cosmetology students wanted to do them because they were all in school for hair. I was told that at some point while I was there, which for cosmetology is roughly a year, they were going to get a barber class teacher, something like that, to where we could get certified in barbering as well, because you do have a couple extra certifications. I was told, what the curriculum was, how long we spend in each section, and it was not like that at all. Cosmetology is straight hair, if they even want to teach you that.
So I'm gonna be very honest and real, and my memory is very foggy just in general. So remembering specifics from the tour is just not gonna happen for me. But I do know the reason I chose the school that I went to, and what's nice is you're getting 2 point of views, is Emma did cosmetology, I did aesthetics, but I also want to fully disclose that I got 100 hours of credit because I went to Vancouver Film School and studied makeup. So they gave me 100 hours of credit for that, which was really nice because they did not have to do that. So I want to disclose that I did 500 instead of 600 hours, and B, only 2 months, no, I think only a month and a half in, the school shut down due to COVID, which it shut down for Emma too, but she'd already done stuff beforehand. So it affected me a little bit more. But the reason that I chose the school that I went to is because it offered tons of certifications, which I'm just going to tell you now there's pros and cons to. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm pretty sure I got everything they mentioned when I toured, but like I said, my brain is super foggy. So the pro is I have all these certifications. I can do microneedling, I can do microdermabrasion, spray tans, dermaplaning, chemical peels, lash extensions. There's some things I'm forgetting, waxing, all of it. But the benefit of that is I have all those certifications. The con is you get so many certifications that for each one, they only do, if you're lucky, 2 days. But for the most part, you only get 1 day focused on that quote-unquote certification, which is funny because part of the, I don't know if it's true for cosmetology, but part of the written exam for aesthetics, some of the questions are, how many hours do you have to have done this for to get your certification in it? And when you go to school, I don't even know if they were 8-hour school days, were they?
In the beginning,
Okay.
when I was there, they were. So probably
So
for
maybe.
your first whatever month. But after COVID, they split us into daytime and nighttime people, like morning and afternoon on our side.
Yeah, they didn't do that for us because we only had 6 people in our class.
Okay.
But anyway, so even if it was an 8-hour day, for most of those certifications, that's not even the right number of hours, but they just give you the certification because you've been roughly taught it. So I have taken classes since.
Yeah. Yep. And that was, again, more promises that they told us is you will get all the same certifications that the estheticians do. You will get all of the same things because you're going to be certified in everything. The way that their curriculum ran was in a circle. So you started your basics and you covered everything once in basics. Then you covered everything. By the time you got out to the floor, you were supposed to cover everything on the floor twice in your year. So in total, of me being there, we had 3 weeks of skin, which is 1 week per circle, and 2 days for nails. We had 1 day in basics, where we actually did nails. Everything else was literally watching videos about what the products were. So like, this is nail polish. Not what it does. Just, this is nail polish. This is a file. This is your base coat. Like, it was so dumb. And then most of it was hair, which was fine. And our basics class is very chemical oriented. So it was like, don't mix this with that. Don't put this on that. Make sure that if they have this on their hair, you're not putting this on that. All of that kind of stuff. And then once we got out to the floor, there was no organization of what the cycle was. So if we did highlights, fashion color, perming, we might do perming an extra 2 days. They'll count that as the next week, and then we just won't be doing anything. So when I first got out on the floor, the teachers that I had were not very helpful. I have since known one a little more personally, and she kind of said that she, not purposefully, but was in a time where she just didn't care. She was like, I was doing this, I was at a low, and I just didn't care about my job. And I was like, cool, I'm paying for that. And then towards the end, I wouldn't say it was like the best, but I had 2 teachers who, one had been a Redken color specialist. And so she taught us a lot of little tips and tricks specifically with Redken, which if I had gone into hair, that's a very commonly used salon thing. And then our other teacher was black, and she brought in her nephews, I think a few times, to show us how to do like ethnic haircuts, which is super rare. Do not expect to go to beauty school and learn to cut any other hair besides your yak mannequin. Because hair textures are different, everybody's different, gray hair is different, everything is different. They don't really teach you how to assess any of that. If I had gone into a hair salon straight out of beauty school, I think I would have had a mental breakdown. I kind of had a mental breakdown with nails, but the only difference was I had been doing my own nails and loved nails so much that all of my nail education, besides those 2 days, which were bacteria and disease, everything about how to apply products, how to use them safely, was on my own time. We learned about funguses, we learned about diseases, we learned about things you can't work on, but that was it.
They really do just prioritize health and safety, which I'm not bashing on because that is like a very
necessary.
Important part of our industry, but there's obviously other things that are important too.
Money-wise, if you're gonna pay for it,
you're expecting to learn.
Yeah.
You're expecting to leave knowing what you're doing, and in all reality, that's just not true, which is why when I do talk to new people, and I've talked to a couple recently that are in school and they're like, well, I just want to go right off the bat, like do my own thing. And I will highly discourage that in every situation. I will blatantly admit that working at a spa, salon, nail place isn't the most fun ever. No. And like, it's going to depend on the environment. I know people that work in those long term and that's what they love and they have no issues with it. So it can work for the right person. But even if you do want to start your own business, work somewhere first, because you do not know everything when you leave school.
Yeah, even if you feel like you're going to have the clientele, I still learn things to this day just because things change and more education is coming out. But so my salon experience overlapped with beauty school a little bit because I started beauty school in September 2019. We looked it up before I started this episode. And then, of course, COVID hit in like April of 2020. So that's how long I had been physically in school for. Because I think I officially started November of 2019. COVID happened. I don't know how, but they told me I got my hours. I was supposed to graduate
2020.
I think so, yeah, October of 2020. And no, they had told me my estimated date due to COVID was going to be February of 2021.
Okay.
And then they told me end of September of 2020 that I was done. Don't know how that happened. I was doing what I thought everyone else was doing, and we were only able to get so many hours outside of school because we weren't doing the Zoom and we were just showing them. But also during that time, they were like, you can watch anything that you're going to be certified to do on YouTube. So I watched nail videos because I already loved it and they weren't teaching me anything. But so that was like that experience. And so overlapping, I think it was it was like salons had just started opening back up in 2020 and I got hired front desk at the nail salon that I was at. And so when I graduated, I had already been shadowing 6 other people in the industry for however many months that is. 3 months, 4 months. So that when I did graduate because I think I finally got my license, like I was official in October, then I had already like learned how to do the protocols there, but I was still learning so much more. And then especially when I decided to go out on my own, I was like, okay, I need to take classes to know how to do like structure gel, which is what I wanted to specialize in, gel X extensions, which I wanted to specialize in at the time. And when I took those classes, my mind was blown because I learned so much. And I wish I would have just spent less money at my beauty school and invested in the education that actually taught me how to do things.
Yeah. I mean, I had one really good teacher, but thrown in there were 2 or 3 really bad teachers, and so we didn't consistently have the really good teacher. We occasionally had the other ones, and one of them taught us like we were first graders and we were always doing little art projects over things, and the other one was a Reiki specialist, which I have nothing wrong with all of that, but she was very pushy about all of her beliefs and all of that, and I'm like, that's not what I'm here for. So I don't know.
Yeah,
just
it definitely depends on the teachers, because I've even had people
teachers
now,
make or break it.
I have a client now, she's graduated doing hair, lovely. When she was in school, she was like, I love my teachers and I'm learning so much.
Yep.
But she had 2 completely different teachers than I did. And she had a male teacher who would do, like, before he was teaching at the school, he was doing classes at like events and things.
That makes such a difference.
And so he knew how to teach, how people would learn, but he also knew, like, I interact with people all the time who don't know how to do the basics. So
there's 2 sides to what I would say when picking a beauty school, and one side is just go to a beauty school that's going to teach you the basics and how to get your license, pay the minimal. But I will admit that the benefit of going to a school where you did pay a little bit of a premium and you got all the quote-unquote certifications is I did get to experience all of those things hands-on at least once or twice, and I was able to really figure out what I wanted to niche down and focus on.
Because again, we didn't get teach barbering.
Yeah.
They told us we had a week of lashes. I say a week. They were throwing it in at the end of our day. And I had missed the first 2 days, and because I didn't have any clients, and I, at that point, had already been, like, cut up on my mannequins, they were like, you can just do lashes all day today. I went and sat in with the estheticians, with the other girl who had been, like, sick and also missed the first few days. And they said, if you can bring a model at the end of the week, we will hand you your certificate that says that you're qualified to do lashes and something else that we didn't even do. They were like, lashes and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, cool, I want to have all the certifications I can have, because maybe I was so bored in school that doing the lashes on the mannequin, I was like, maybe I'm going to do lashes. Like, this is so nice, and I do love skin, and I'm very into the aesthetics of it all. I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to do that. Well, then I talked to my teacher, and I said, hey, when should I figure out, like, what day should I do that? And she was like, we're not going to have time this week. We're not going to have time this week for you to bring in a model, so you'll just have to bring them in next week. So I was like, okay. So I didn't ask anyone to be my model. The other girl who was also trying to get the certification, she just scheduled a model, which I now know is kind of how the world works, and I should have just done that. Because she got her certificate for whatever the things were, and then Monday for the next week rolled around, and I told my teacher, hey, when should I schedule my model? And she said, oh, you should have done that last week. We're not doing lashes anymore. And I was like, I hate you. Because I was like, cool, you told me to wait. And she was like, well, I don't know why I did that. Cool, I don't know why you did that either.
Our lash instructor was not qualified to teach either, which cracks me up.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. Because when I sat into the class for the 2 days that I was there, you were probably in the same class.
Yeah, I probably was.
I was shocked that it was her teaching, because I didn't know that they had her doing it over there. And she had just been gone on our side because she was in school to be a cosmetologist. In school to
Oh, so that was no.
A different
So
person?
that was after. No, same person.
Same person.
But she taught us before she was even in school to get her cosmetology license, and I was just sat there going, "This makes like you're not
crazy.
Licensed and you're teaching."
Yeah.
Wild. She was only teaching because I don't know who listens to this, so this might be tea. But she was only teaching because she was engaged, possibly married at this point, to the owner of the school's son.
Yeah.
They're now divorced.
Yep.
So.
And I'm pretty sure that's also why she was in school, because she was never there. I don't know if she ever finished.
She must have, because she works now, so I'd hope so.
Yeah, but she was licensed in
in
Utah.
Aesthetics.
Is different too. So she was licensed in Utah for like lashes and something else. Because of how they do their certifications.
Utah's so extra with their certifications.
You can do so much in Utah that you would have to get an umbrella certificate. Like, you would have to do cosmetology, aesthetics, whatever, to do the things here in Colorado. And Utah, they'll be like, oh no, you just have to get just this one thing.
It does take a while to get it, though.
Yeah. It's just interesting.
Every state is so different. That's one of the things that gives me anxiety when I think about moving, because I very much love what I do, and I don't foresee myself doing anything outside of the beauty industry ever. So, like, if I did move to another state, I would just have to figure out.
Well, and you'd be looking into that, because I know there are some states where they will take all of your credits, no issue, you do a transfer, you're fine. And then there are some states where they make you go back to school because you did less hours than what they expect. But sometimes
Colorado's pretty high, so, like...
Sometimes they'll count behind the chair experience as certain continuing education, things like that. So it just kind of depends.
The issue for me is there's tons of states now that require a lash extension license, which Colorado doesn't even have, so I'd have to get that. Texas requires more hours, so I'd have to go back to school. California requires more hours, I'd have to go back to school.
But I think both of those places will count behind the chair, too, in your work experience. So it all just depends.
It's just so complicated, guys.
But again, beauty, like, that's the thing is, every person I know, every single beauty school they went to, they were like, they taught me nothing, and I'm struggling. We would get new girls into the salon, segueing, we would get new girls into the salon where they would be like, and I cure this? And we'd be like, yes. Or they would be like, oh, I was taught to do it this way, and we'd be like, that's really dangerous, actually, don't do that.
Beauty school also teaches you nothing about proper protocols, in my experience, proper facial protocol. They'll teach you the health and that side of it, but they don't actually teach you, the order of how you do things or things like that. And then the other...
And the internet is so vast now, too.
Oh, gosh.
I told my little brother this because he's a nutrition. And there's so many things that he knows that they haven't touched on yet because he's in the beginning. But I was like, hey, if you're bored right now, just push through, get your certification, and then you can use that to do whatever you want within your scope of practice. Like, that's just how it's going to be. I mean, the amount of beauty schools that I knew friends that went to that were not told things that are actually illegal, like, oh, you can't remove toenails in this fashion, you can't remove skin in this fashion, you can't cut toenails in this fashion, because that's all a podiatrist job. Does it suck? Because sometimes we're like, let me just snip this? Sure. But like, you legally can't do those things.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so there's so many things where it's like, you can't diagnose. You can't even kind of sort of diagnose. If I
No,
have
you
a
just
client,
tell them to go to the doctor.
if I have a client, I'll be like, hey, this is what you need to ask your doctor about. But I can't say, I think this is what you have.
Yeah.
I have to say, like, I just had a client who was telling me she had a little place on the bottom of her foot. And I was like, you know, I can't tell you what it is. Definitely go to a podiatrist, but tell them that you noticed it after you went walking, because at least that's something you could, you know what I mean? Like, but you can't say, I think it's a blood blister. You can't even say that, because
Yeah.
if they don't get it checked out and it's cancer, they can sue you. We had some technical difficulties, and so that is why we are in different clothes.
What you just listened to was filmed a little while ago, and now
Yeah.
we're filming the second half. Anybody listening will not know that.
And I was gonna say, also, both of our haircut, like, mine's
Yeah, we also
freshened.
both did our hair. So
But if you're listening, you'd never know. So we're just gonna jump right back to where we left off, which was our experience in salons after we left beauty school.
yeah, so I was lucky enough because I graduated right kind of after COVID. I feel like a lot of spas had heavy turnover during COVID, so I got my first job in a spa a week after I got my license, and I was very lucky to have that because I know nowadays the job market is very tricky. But I started working there, and I feel like that's when you kind of realize that beauty school teaches you nothing. The protocols were done completely differently than how I'd been taught in school, and lashing in school had been like a 2 day focus, and I don't think I even did an application for it when I was at school. So I was kind of retraining on that, and they did not train me at all. I'm going to be so honest. They had me do a couple model sets, like classic lashes I got down pretty easy, pick that up, and then volume lashes I would have to practice at home on my own time because I just could not figure out how to fan, which anybody else who has started lashing knows that's a really difficult skill to acquire, let alone when you have nobody who's willing to teach you. And I remember they were like, just practice at home, send pictures of your fans to this other lady who works here, and she'll like help you modify and critique you. I would send her pictures and I'd be like, I can't get them to stay open. And she was like, oh, that's normal. They always close up. To which I'm like, okay, then what is the point? And I now know very much that's not true. It means I was using too much adhesive and I was not holding them long enough on the lash to be placed properly. So, come a long way since then. The things I did learn in the spa is proper sanitation, proper turnover time. I feel like I did learn a lot skincare wise. I just didn't learn a lot lash wise, but they are a spa that is more geared towards skin. And that's actually one of the reasons I ended up leaving. I got kind of tired of doing facial after facial after facial after facial. They're not, in my opinion, as fun as doing lashes because I'm an artist, so there's a lot more artistry to lashes and nails than there is compared to simply doing skincare. But spas are a really toxic work environment, I feel like, because they become very cliquey, and my spa was very obvious which clicks were where, and that's one of the reasons I left. And the other reason I left is because if you sit down and you do your like commission rate versus how much they are charging for the facials, it's absolutely insane. So I definitely recommend you do need to work in a spa because I did learn a lot skincare wise, but also don't stay there too long because they do not pay you enough for what you're doing.
I think that goes for probably most salons. I did not work in a hair salon doing hair, so I don't know. Like, I didn't get to a point in the hair industry with all of that, but with nails, it was kind of the same. Like, I started in a salon. I felt like I learned a lot right off the bat because they didn't really teach us nails in school.
Yeah.
And so having that experience, and again, like learning what an autoclave is, how to use an autoclave, now that's part of something that I'm like so used to that when I went out on my own, I knew I needed something like that because I wanted it.
Yeah.
So I was able to factor that into my budgeting and things like that too. And then just like getting exposed to professional brands because up until that point we didn't really have access to very many besides like OPI or whatever they sell at the beauty supply stores that you can get when you're a student.
Yeah, I don't even
So
know what lash stuff they gave us, but it was garbage. I think it was straight off of
yeah,
Amazon.
the stuff that they like give you in school is bad, but also if you go to a Cosmoprof, they typically, or a Salon Centric, or any sort of store that is professional based, and you show them your student ID, they typically will let you buy products while you're there. And that's why it was like, I think the only products that we had access to at a salon, like salon studio thing, was like OPI and CND and like whatever other brand, which they're not even very good brands.
Yeah.
So then moving into a salon where they're like, oh, this is a different brand of things with different people and all this stuff. Different people and all this stuff. No, this is a different brand. It's more professional, but like you had to have your license and all of these things. And it was just interesting to learn about that. And then, yeah, like we had to, the salon I worked at was very clean. So they taught us how to disinfect in between clients and what we had to, like, oh, you let this sit for 10 minutes and oh, then you put your tools back here and you clean them and you do this and like all of that. So kind of the same thing. Like we learned a lot of that. But once I started getting more advanced in my nails, they weren't really doing continuing education. They weren't really like showing us how to do nail art. We were just kind of showing each other what we had learned and like, oh, I figured out how to paint a seashell super fast. Like let's share that with the class, you know? And then same sort of thing as you got more comfortable, like as I got more comfortable in the environment, like it started getting more cliquey, it started getting more toxic because we all started becoming friends with who we were going to be friends with.
Yeah.
And then like my friends would leave because they were in the nail industry. I typically became friends with a lot of people who don't put up with very much stuff. And so they would leave, and then kind of at the point where I started realizing I needed to get out on my own was when the clickiness got so bad that I wasn't getting paid enough for what I was doing, and they ended up promoting a different girl to manager than me, who I just don't think was a good fit for the role. There was nothing like, I don't know if she listens to this actually. There was nothing necessarily wrong with her. She was part of the little cliquey environment, but there was just like, I don't know why she became manager. She couldn't handle situations super well. She didn't know too much. I had worked front desk at that salon for a really long time, so I also knew a lot of the like inner workings of the computer program and everything. And so when difficult things would happen, she would kind of just pass it on to the head front desk person, who was, I guess, fine handling it. But when it came to neither of them, like that front desk person not being there, I ended up having to do a lot of kind of the damage control, and it got really bad. So I switched to so like franchise, different location. And at that point, then the owner was like, oh, we're going to sell. And I was like, oh, maybe it'll get better. Like maybe things will level out. Maybe things will get better. Because I switched locations, that was pretty much the only reason things got better. And then once the new owners got settled in, I was like, I can't. This is not. I had already found a place, had already signed my lease. I had just thought I was going to still work there like a couple days a week.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, never mind. I don't like this. And it's really sad because it's hard to find salons that care about cleanliness in the nail industry. And they are extremely clean. But I feel like they started slacking off because of the new owners. And the new owners were focusing on the cleanliness of the dumbest stuff. Like we had to clean out the vents every few months. She was really OCD about us sweeping the floor. But then when you wipe down your desk, the wipe is supposed to be wet enough to where you don't see it dry until like a couple minutes have gone by. I can't remember what the touch time for those were. But she would like wring them out so it would like save the liquid. And so you would wipe them down and it would be like super dry really quick and like just things like that, you know?
Yeah.
But I was still like, well, it's still the cleanest place I know, so when I leave, if people can't get in with me, I'll recommend them to there.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't do that now. Even if I thought the services were still good, but they also started like hyper, I don't know what the word would be, hyper processing new people. So when I had done my training, it was like a week of
so they did
like
quick
shadow,
onboarding.
yeah, so it was like a week of shadowing, and in between your shadowing you would like read the procedures. Then you had a week of models, and during that week you probably had one model every day, and then you were shadowing. The way that they did it was you had 3 days. Your first day was all of your like actual typical onboarding, all of the videos that the corporate started making them do. Your second day was shadowing. And then your third day was 3 models to do services on. When I did it, you had to do a model for every single procedure that we had.
Yeah, which makes sense.
And again, I was working their front desk, so it was easier for me to fit it in. But before that other owner quit, that's how everyone was. It wasn't just because I still worked there. So it started getting really fast. We were getting a lot of girls. They had just started doing builder gel, which they started calling gel shield. It was so stupid. And they had a lot of people who were coming in not knowing how to do that service, or not knowing how to do that service without an e-file, because we didn't use electric files there. And I just had given up on trying. Like, they would ask me all these questions because I had just gotten certified in Luminary, and like they would tell me, well, how do you do it? How would you do this? And I was like, this should be something that they know. Like, I should not be having to do this. And then when I left, this was actually recently, this was earlier this year, I had a client come in and her nails were awful. Like, her actual nail was fine, but like they were so thick and lumpy and bumpy, and the polish wasn't like even all on like to the sides, but then on some nails it was like too far on the sides where it had created that little like cliff lip edge. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she was like, yeah, this just wasn't what I thought it was gonna be. And I really don't know if like the girl just didn't know what she was doing, and we're taking it off, blah 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 blah. And afterwards she's like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna go to that salon again. And she said the name, and I was like, oh, okay, that's embarrassing that they let you leave like this, because it wasn't even like they tried. It was so bad. So it got to a point where I was like, okay, just doesn't align with what I want anymore, and they're not teaching us anymore, and I want to grow.
Yeah.
So
that was one of my issues, because there was literally like I said, I didn't even get any education on lashes to begin with, so there was no continued education on that since there was no initial. And then with even the facials, I think I was there for a year and a half, and I think only one rep ever came in for one of the 3 lines we had. So even with that, I wasn't learning much. And then the third reason I left is because they wanted all estheticians to perform the same services. Fair but not fair at the same time, because what that meant is, even though I already offered lash extensions, they wanted me to offer body wraps, which I did do one of them, I just didn't do the other 2, and then body waxing, which I didn't get the proper education on that in beauty school, so I would have needed additional training on that, which they weren't going to offer me. They were essentially just going to throw me into doing body waxing, which is wild and not safe. So that was the other reason, because anybody who couldn't perform lash extensions were not expected to get certified in that, but they were expecting those of us who did lash extensions to get certified and qualified and everything else.
And what I hate is like the fact that you
bless you. Thank you.
What I hate is like the fact that if you go into a salon and they want you to do a service and you're like, hey, I haven't done that in a while.
Yeah.
I was never taught how to properly do this. That instead of going, okay, hey, let's take 3 days, go watch blah, 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 she's really good. In between your clients, we'll block out extra or whatever, like, thing to actually help.
Yeah.
Because there are so many situations where I think if someone were to actually get like you said with the body waxing, if you were to actually have gotten the training, then you would have probably felt more comfortable, and you probably would have felt like you could have stayed a little longer because you have more options. And also, I feel like salons that offer so much at the same time, because I was just talking to someone about the salons at Lifetime and how I couldn't tell if the cosmetologist there was doing everything, because they only had like one person doing hair. I could hear somebody in the facial room, but they also had like a nail desk, but nobody was there. So I was like, I wonder if they had a cosmetologist doing all of it. And when I was telling one of my clients that, she said, oh, so they're also not good at anything.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing so much, you don't. That's why they always tell you, and we've probably said it too, to niche down your services, because if you want to specialize in something and you're not focusing on it, then you're never going to actually get good enough at it to continue and, you know, offer quality services. So
so I think I started in my studio taking clients, I think like February 8th of 2022. 3.5 years ago. And I was taking clients, I think, for a week, while also still working at my other job, because I hadn't quit it yet, obviously, because I needed some income. And after a week, they fired me because they found my studio, and I don't remember what, quite honestly, BS excuse she used for how she found it. But the message was not nice, and I think I still have. She called me first, and then she sent me an email, and in the email she was like, I could take you to court for this, which I won't, which I think there was actually a bill passed which prevents that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so also some advice, which I may have mentioned before, because when we, like, they mass let go, I'm calling it, because they tried to fire us and it was just so weird. I had already put in my 2 weeks, so I don't know. But when that happened, I had done a bunch of research, because a lot of the girls, including myself, but I figured that it didn't work, had signed non-competes. And even before the bill was passed where it makes non-competes illegal in the state of Colorado, with a couple exceptions, but not in our field, they still were kind of iffy. Because in our industry, because we're service-based and we work with people one-on-one, people have free will. You can't make free will illegal. So when the non-compete I had said you can't work within 3 miles of a location or take your clients with you, there's free will. So while technically they could have gotten me on the 3 miles thing, I was really glad that I was in Parker, because they were way further than 3 miles anyways. If my clients made the conscious decision to follow me, they can't do anything about that. And now they can't even tell you can't work within a certain field of your area. So if somebody tries to get you to sign a non-compete, or they tell you that it's required for your job, you can either sign it knowing that it's not going to hold up in court, or you can try, like, if you want to be aggressive, you can be like, this is illegal. You're not allowed to do that. But it depends on how bad you want the job. But yeah, non-competes are not, they don't hold up. Because, like, I was just telling my mom this too, because she's switching jobs, and we were just talking about things. If a client came to me and was like, oh my gosh, they told me that you're leaving, or I couldn't get on your books because you're not going to be here, what's going on? And I would say, oh, I have my own studio now, it's in Parker, I just can't do both, or whatever. And if the owners, I had gone through 15 scenarios of the owners confronting me for telling my clients this, and you can say, well, did you want me to lie? Like, do you want me to lie? Because companies don't want to be associated with lying. So the minute you're like, well, do you want me to lie? And if they surprisingly are like, yes, we need you to lie, then be like, oh, so you want to be associated with lying? You as a company, your ethics are, you want me to lie, because they don't want to be associated with that. And so I was telling my mom, like, if you say you want me to lie and they're like, yes, you can go down that route, or most likely. And what happened with me was, well, no, we don't want you to lie, but like just don't tell them. And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna not tell them if they ask.
Yeah.
Like, I can't, like, again, that's lying. And they're like, well, just say you got a different job. And I was like, okay, so what if I say I get a different job and they ask me where?
Yeah.
You know, like, there's all these, it takes you down this spiral because they can't do anything about it. There's nothing they can do about it unless they want to be associated with bad morals and ethics. So, okay, what else did I have?
I think we're just on to the business.
Yeah, I think
our
so.
Businesses, which is going to be like a shorter part of this because we've talked so much about the ups and downs of business anyways, but this is just kind of the how we got there, I guess.
I feel like we can just touch on the bullet points, which is if you're going into beauty school and you're listening to this episode to see if you're going to be able to survive, the things that they don't teach you about business is literally everything. They claim that they're going to. They claim that they're going to show you how to make money yourself, or at least, again, my teachers did.
Yeah.
But they did not teach us about finances, taxes, budgeting. We had one project, which I now know was because this teacher was a little petty. We had one project because so many of the girls we had a moment where we were like, what are you going to do after school? And so many of the girls were like, well, I'm just going to have my own studio. I'm not working in a salon. I don't like salon culture, blah, blah, blah. And the teacher was like, I've been in the hair industry for 20 years. Your project is to pretend like you're opening a studio tomorrow. And you have to figure out what your budget is. But even with that, like knowing what I know now, it was an awful project because everyone was just looking up the cost of things, which was good because for those girls who were so insistent that they were going to leave beauty school and have their own studio, they were like, oh, for me to have everything I have in beauty school, it's going to be $1,000. But they still didn't teach us like how to budget for that. Should you work a separate job and try to do this at the same time? Should you, like, how can you do this to make it successful?
We had the same project, but ours involved, we also had to design like 100 square foot studio and what we would have in it and then budget out how much all of that would cost.
I think we did that too, but nothing was to scale because nobody,
that's fair,
like, we didn't know how to do that either. Nobody teaches you how to plan floor plans. They also don't talk about how you can burn out really early, and they don't tell you how to combat that, which I think is really important when they do so many other things that kind of go hand in hand with mental health, as far as like looking for abuse in clients, looking for trafficking in clients, like all of these other things that we're supposed to look out for in other people, but they never really tell us how to look out for it in ourselves. And obviously, like, they're not gonna give us a therapy session, but I feel like they do heavily push, you're going to have to work every day for the rest of your life. You're going to have to do all of this stuff and just suck it up. And then you go into it thinking that that's normal. You're going to burn out early. And then outside of the school, I feel like gatekeeping is still very rampant.
I feel like the lash industry's gotten a lot better with that. I think skincare, there's probably still some troubles, and then obviously you're talking about nails. Lashes, I feel like, has finally opened up, and as long as you're following the right people, it's all out on the table for you.
And I do think the nail industry is starting to get there, where people are starting to tell us what brands they use, but they're still holding back just enough because they don't want people to know more of the marketing aspect of their industry. Like, they want to be able to sell their $300 class that's gonna teach you all the things. Because, and we've talked about Lexi before, but I feel like with Lexi and her lash stuff, she does teach a hands-on class that you can pay for and one-on-one get shown how to do different techniques and stuff. But she also is not gatekeeping, like, she just released a bunch of lash maps.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so handy for people starting out. And there are a couple hairstyle, like, the hair industry is starting to get into, like, well, this is how I foiled it, and these are the colors that I used. But I still think that the nail industry, at least the people I follow, while they're showing products more because they're becoming brand ambassadors and they need to push certain things, they're still withholding, like, how they take their pictures, what lighting they use. That's a big thing in the nail industry. The best way to take photos. I just made a book about it. And I tried to make it pretty cheap because I didn't want it to be another gatekeeping thing, but it also took me a year. So
That's fair.
I do feel like maybe that's where more of the gatekeeping is now, is just the how to advance your business from a content creation standpoint versus like actual products
Yeah.
and things like that.
I feel like as brands do more like ambassadorships, like gatekeeping of products is less common because
Right.
people are supposed to promote those.
Yeah.
And obviously if you're an ambassador for a brand, you love it, and like for that reason that's why I like sharing it, because I know it's something that's workable for
You
beginners.
believe in it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's where our industry does struggle, is like it's definitely still competitive, and like that was definitely a big problem in my spa for sure. And I think that's why the other lash girl had no desire to help me, which was kind of pathetic, especially considering she was in her 40s. But nonetheless.
And I do think the skincare still is heavily gatekeeping.
Yeah, nobody really
products.
talks about it.
And I think it's because in the skincare industry, they can charge $1,000 for things, so they don't feel like all their information is way too valuable.
Yeah.
Versus, not that we can't charge expensive services, or higher end services, but I do think that even skincare brands are like gatekeeping. Like,
Yeah, until you purchase their products, you don't get their education.
right. So there's that. There's also, I've reached out to brands that I've liked, hoping to get a wholesale discount. And they require you to basically be an entire salon.
Yeah.
There was one that had like a $3,000 minimum. And then after they told me that, and I was like, ugh, they also told me that they didn't want me to do anything but skin. When I told them that I also did nails, they were like, well, we typically focus on cosmetologists and estheticians who primarily focus on skin. And I was like, why?
Crazy.
I was like, why?
That narrows their field so much.
But there's so many skincare brands that do that. Like, when I've called, they're like, oh, we primarily, like, your website only says nails. And I'm like, well, my facial clientele is really exclusive. You know, like, oh, I don't advertise it because, like, I only do specialties. And I only have, like, 20 people that I do because I'm so good. And they're like, but you still do nails and we don't want that. Or they do kind of, in their own way, gatekeep with the price of you have to buy $1,000 worth of stuff. And when you're small,
that just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Even if you're only going to carry the one brand, $1,000 worth of product at a discounted rate is insane. Like, that's so much stuff that, I mean, I got enough samples for a salon for a year probably, and it was only like $70. And I was like, wow, if I was going to carry products, I would have to have everything. And then, of course, I'm only going to use that one brand because I can't invest in another brand that might be beneficial for different reasons. So, very, yeah. People not sharing resources. And that's one of the reasons we started this too.
Yeah.
Was because we were like, we want to break the rest of what people are not telling you because of their own agenda.
And I feel like there's still an issue within Colorado itself with that. Like, I feel like we have one of the less open beauty communities, personally, from personal experience. And that's one of the things we want to change.
Yeah, I feel like all we know as far as mass majority is Colorado. So that's your call to action for this episode, is let us know if you feel like your state or your area is very gatekeepy, or if you feel like they're very open.
Yeah.
Because I would be very curious about that. And then another truth about being in this industry is, we've talked about this before too, the pressure to always be on brand, to be perfect. I just had another mental breakdown after I applied to be a brand ambassador yet again for another brand that's probably not going to pick me, which is, I'm not someone who has the time, because I'm actually fully booked, to film a bunch of B-roll content in my studio. I don't have a ton of time to put my face a lot of times. Like, I'm trying to just take B-roll footage out in my life so I can attach my face to more things. But I do think that we are very much in an era, especially as you start getting more advanced in the career and you want to be representing brands, where you feel like you have to do all the tutorials and do all the like influencer things, even though it doesn't feel like something you want to do. And that's how I felt after applying for this, is I was like, I am super passionate about educating. I'm super passionate about like people knowing what products are good and what products aren't worth it. And this brand is looking for people who want to be educational and want to show products, but they also want you to have a super engaged following, which my following is engaged, but they don't always like show it. They're not always liking a post because they saw it. They're not always commenting because they saw it. A lot of my clients will literally be like, oh, I screenshotted these nails that you did because I wanted them for my next set. And I was like, oh, and you did, but you didn't like it. Like, you didn't like the post. Okay. So I think that there's still a lot of pressure to try and be that all around influencer when we're also everything else already. I was like, I think that's
it.
My only other note was how we survived, which is barely.
I was gonna say, it's one of those things where, like, I've said it before, where people get into beauty thinking it's easy money, and like, it's not.
I did just see a post where somebody was complaining about so what she does in her videos is she always asks her clients what their budget is, and they'll tell her something, $800, $1,500, whatever, and she does hair. And she's like, I don't do that. Like, if they say their budget is $1,500, I know we can do whatever we need to do to get them to where they want, but I'm not charging them $1,500. And she was like, the other comment that is tagged on with, I can't believe you charged her $1,500 even though she didn't, is, you know, well, I do my hair at home for $50 and blah 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 blah. And she's like, okay, if it's so easy, you do it. You go to school, you become a hairdresser. Like, if you think it's gonna be, like, if you're gonna complain about it to that extent, then, like, you do it.
And I think a lot of people forget that we did have an initial investment, and for those of us who take our education seriously, we continue to invest every year, and we invest in the expensive products and the products that are gonna work and are safe, and
we're just testing things. Like, oh, I want to figure out this
the price
brand.
point of being a business owner.
Yeah, it's a lot. Especially if you go out on your own, you might be spending $1,000 a month on product, but then you're also spending $1,000 or more on rent, and you're also spending $1,000 and more of your own time for free, doing everything else. So the expenses can really rack up. And then that was one of my points, but I didn't have a ton of experience in a commission-based salon. But that's why when you go to a commission-based salon, that they take a commission, is because, and you can't just get 100% of your profit.
Yeah,
because they have
expenses.
Yeah, and they have to make money too as owners.
Yeah.
So,
but they have the other employees to pay too that aren't just doing the services, because they have to pay their front desk staff, they have to pay the cleaners that they possibly have coming in, and
even more
everything else. So, like, that's the reason the commission is so low, but in my opinion, it's definitely been worth it.
If you can find a good place, will be 40-60. A fine place will be 50-50, and still a decent place will be where they take 60 and you have 40.
I think mine was 20/80.
Yeah, that's wild.
It was really bad. That's why.
So that's low. Like, that's a bad one.
That's
Also, if they sign you on as a 1099 instead of a W-2, that's illegal.
Yeah, it's a major red flag. Get out of there.
Get out of there. Because they're doing that to write off a lot on their own taxes, and they did the owners got into that business to make money. So that's why they're doing that.
Yeah.
They will not care about you. They will not. It's awful.
I think there's also a lot to be said for, like, figuring out who the owner of the company is and seeing whether they're a licensed esthetician or cosmetologist themselves. Because if they're not, as Emma just said, they're in it for the money.
And
they don't care about you.
I don't know if I mentioned this in the first half, but the salon that I worked at, the original owner had done hair for 20 years. So even though she was in nails, she knew we paid to go to beauty school. We invested in our education. And at the time, she was paying us well above minimum wage. It is now minimum wage, but it wasn't at the time. But she had her own issues as far as, like, confrontation. But that being her one flaw, it was still a very tolerable work environment. But yeah, also, because one of my notes here was, like, finding out how, like, finding your way around the industry scaries. And I was thinking, we've said this a million times, finding a good community that you can kind of lean on and not feel alone. Another reason we created this podcast. However, my one thing that I think you should not do is it depends on the people, I guess. But I saw more friendships fall apart in beauty school when they were friends previously and they decided to go together. Like, we're going to go to beauty school together. And then beauty school gets really toxic. It gets really cliquey, just like everything. And that we've talked about. And I saw so many friendships where it was like, they're not even friends at the end. And they've made new friends.
Yeah.
So obviously it depends on the people and how you are and maybe how close you were with that person originally. But it's just like when you have a business and you hire your friends or your family, like, no. Things...
Be careful.
Be careful.
It's the same thing as, like, don't room with your friend. Like, don't be roommates with your friends.
Yeah. So keep that in mind. Like, afterwards, like, me and Jade have talked about getting certified in certain things and going together.
Yeah.
But as far as beauty school, you're...
like, the core of it.
You're so close all the time. And the amount of people who were like, well, I didn't know you thought like that. Or I didn't know that this had happened to you. Or that this had happened, like, and you didn't know that this had happened to me. And now we're not friends anymore because... But then you still have to see each other all the time because you can't just...
I think
leave.
It's kind of, and I don't know the people you're talking about, but I feel like it's kind of an age game too, and a maturity thing, because, like, when you're in school, you're still very much, like, it just felt like school, unfortunately. It didn't feel like adulthood.
And I had taken a year off because I had graduated high school and then we moved here, and to me, literally, I was like, oh, this feels kind of like summer camp.
Yeah, so
like,
I
if
think
you've
that's
ever been...
also the difference, is, like, Emma and I are now 5 years into the industry and into the business, so we understand it more and we understand each other more because, like, we've talked to each other as we've been growing our businesses. And I feel like once you go through something that difficult together, it's totally fine. But you go, and we know it's difficult going into it, whereas beauty school, you think it's going to be easy when you go into it, and XYZ, and you're just not prepared for it. Yeah. So I feel like that's the other thing, is the different level of pressures. Like,
and maybe that's it too, is that maturity level. Is some people will leave high school, go to beauty school, and they're already at a maturity level where they've gotten to that point. But definitely the friendships that I've had, I mean, they were immature to begin with, like making fun of the elderly, like the older clients that we had, like, oh, you know, she didn't know what she wanted to do when she got out of school, obviously. And it's like, girl, you have not even been alive very long.
Like, you don't even know if this is what you want to do. You don't know that until you're actually doing it.
And the amount of also mean girls or girls who weren't friends anymore, all of that same, like, grouped together, who don't do the industry things anymore, or people who thought it was going to be, again, like, they see what we've built and how much we're charging or how much we're doing, and they're like, oh, that's going to be me right when I get out of school. And it's like, no.
No.
But I had several girls that I knew in school who were like, oh, I'm not making enough, and it's my first week in a spa. And I'm like,
Well, duh.
yeah, you have to pay your dues. It sucks.
Yeah.
And I hate that we're still an industry that you have to do that. But there are so many industries. I mean, like, even stockbrokers have to, like, pay their dues in their line of work, or accountants or anything like that. So,
I mean, unfortunately, nowadays it's just very real that you're just not going to get the wage you were expecting immediately out of school anyways. Oh my gosh, I had something else I was going to say. It's completely left my mind. Oh, it was kind of relevant, but not. I mean, I think my biggest blessing with all of it is when I was in beauty school, I 100% thought I was just getting that to go out and do makeup. And I got to learn that I loved skin and lashes as well. So for that way, it was really beneficial for me that it's actually my whole life now, because of the number of times I've sat down and I've racked my brain and I'm like, well, what else could I do for income? And the answer is literally, like, I can do makeup, lashes, and beauty, but besides beauty, I have no interest in anything else. And I think it's like, I'm very lucky that I had that, whereas you have people that pay to go through beauty school and then find out they don't want to do it.
Yeah. And I think that's how I was too, is it's like, oh, I went in for nails, but I came out with the education to wax myself. Like, I do everything else on myself and my family. So I have the education to wax myself. I still learn about it from my friend who now also waxes me. And like, she taught me some things, but like hair also, the fact that I know how to properly lift someone's hair to where my little brother is trying to go pure white and his hair, he still has hair. There is a lot of beneficial information that you can learn, but it's probably not going to be what you think it is.
Yeah.
So, this did become a very beauty school centric episode, even though it's supposed to be about everything. But I feel like that's such a big part of getting into this industry, and it's one of the hardest parts besides the decision to go out on your own.
Yeah. My biggest advice from this episode is don't expect to learn everything in beauty school. Expect to continue your education.
Yep. And touching on, I think I mentioned it in the first half, or it was the part. We recorded another part like 4 times because my camera kept dying. So I don't know if it was in that part. But, and now I forgot what my thought was too.
We're having a morning, guys.
We're having a morning.
I feel like I look so dazed if you're watching the video.
Your bangs are like hiding your eyes enough to...
Thankfully.
But yeah, so you'll learn, just go in very open-minded. Oh, that's why I always say, like, just pick the cheapest school. It doesn't have to be about aesthetics, like what it looks like. It doesn't have to be about what you think you're gonna learn. You might even be surprised at how much you learn at a cheaper school, because again, it all comes down to your teachers. And you can go to Aveda. I had friends who went to Aveda who came out of their field literally knowing nothing because their teachers just didn't care. So
it really comes down to teachers, and that's just draw.
And when you do your tour, there's no way to figure out if they're good teachers. Like, there isn't, oh, sit down with the teacher, see if you get along with them, see what they want to teach you. There is none of that.
They really should have shadow classes, but they don't.
I know. I'd be curious about other states too.
That's fair.
If your beauty schools are different. I do see every now and then that there are some beauty schools that do things differently because they went to beauty school and all that kind of stuff. And there's even a nail school in like Lakewood, I think. I think it's called Beauty Collective Academy. And I wouldn't say that I know them super well, but the fact that there's still a school that focuses on nails and the teacher is a nail tech, I feel like that would be an example of you might actually learn something.
Yeah.
Versus like the owner of the school and one of the teachers of the school is in the industry, so.
Yeah.
But I think that's it for this episode. As usual, all of the links that you may need will be in the description. Our podcast Instagram, all of our personal Instagrams. If you are shameless self-promotion, If you are struggling with building your brand, I did just release an ebook that is all about building your brand and a bunch of marketing tips and stuff that I wish I had had when I started. So you can check that out too. And yeah, I think that's it. So we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.